And now I would have a sporty hearse. I really wanted to hold a world record that anybody would understand. You know, you could tell your grandmother, like, oh, well, I have the fastest this. And she would say, oh, I get it. So I've always liked sleepers. And I decided to either build the world's fastest limo or the world's fastest hearse. So I went to Google and I'm doing a little digging and I look up the world's fastest limo. It appears that somebody has stretched a Ferrari and they have a claim top speed of, I don't know, 175 miles an hour. And I said, okay, well, clearly I'm going to be building this for drag racing. This is way before we were doing the half mile and mile racing that they do now, where I would actually have a venue to do that. So I said, okay, well, the limo is out. So it was a hearse. And I thought the hearse would be perfect. I'm a huge Iron Maiden fan, and I could build this car as a tribute to Iron Maiden, put a mural on the car, and maybe even Iron Maiden would notice and reach out to me, you know, because I'm building the world's fastest hearse. If I'm going to build a hearse, it can't be some 1960s Cadillac, because first of all, those things weigh like 7,000 pounds. They're all made of steel. It has to be something newer, because the newer hearses, starting in probably the mid to early 90s, were starting to be fiberglass, so they'd be a lot lighter. So I didn't want to do a Cadillac because that's just too Cadillac-y. So I decided if I could find a Buick Roadmaster or a Chevy Caprice, I could put the Impala Super Sport grille on it, I could get a cowl induction hood, and now I would have a sporty hearse. But I'm very particular about colors, and I really wanted a black hearse with a burgundy interior. You'd think that should be easy to find, because when I think hearse, that's what I think. Black with a red interior. Well, that ended up being very difficult to find, because most of them are silver with blue interiors, and I was just having a hell of a time. So I found finally a Buick Roadmaster locally. It was in Indiana. It wasn't too far away. A couple of my buddies drove me down to see this hearse in Indiana. I ended up buying it. It was a kind of a cold, dreary night in April, and the guy said, well, I've got to get this casket out of the back of the hearse. Will you help me? Okay, we will do that. So we're in the sketchy neighborhood in Indiana. We're pulling a casket out of the back of a hearse to put it in one of his other hearses. It was an interesting night, to say the least. So I get this thing home, and you know, I'm kind of looking it over, and it is a little longer than I'd like. It's probably like an 18-inch stretch. Not ideal, a little heavier than I wanted. And lo and behold, whenever I find a car and I settle, I always find the exact car I need 2 weeks later. And sure enough, you know, I probably, if I was smart, I would stop looking once I have one hearse. Well, that didn't happen. So I was still looking for that unicorn hearse. And lo and behold, I found it on eBay 2 weeks later down in Knoxville, Tennessee. So I run the bid up. I think I ended up paying like $6,000 for this thing. I win the bid, contact the owner, arrange to fly down to Knoxville, Tennessee, pick it up, drive it home. So that's all fine and good. So I'm driving the thing back, and it's getting late, getting tired. So, well, I'll pull into a truck stop and I'll sleep in a hearse. And that's what I did, which is a little creepy looking back on it, and everyone gets a little creeped out when they hear that. But that's what I did. So I get the hearse back, and now I have two hearses, and the neighbors have got to be wondering what's going on because there's two hearses in my driveway. So sell off the Roadmaster. Now I got the Chevy that I really wanted. So my original plan was to do a Duramax diesel. I was into diesel performance at the time, and I figured, well, that would be pretty cool. A diesel hearse that's blowing black smoke, Iron Maiden theme, great. Buy a diesel engine with a transmission, the wire harness, the whole 9 yards. I get the thing to the shop. This engine, I mean, I know they're heavy, but it weighed like 850 pounds. And I started to realize, well, if I put this heavy engine in the front of this hearse, I mean, I'm going to be dedicated to straight line racing. You know, what if I wanted to go around a road course in this hearse? Looking back, that's ridiculous. Why? How would I ever drive a hearse around a road course and have drag racing? I don't know. That was my train of thought. But so I decided, well, I'll sell the Duramax engine and I'll just do what everybody else does. If you can't beat them, join them. I bought an LS 6-liter out of a Chevy van with a 4L80 transmission. There was a kit to put it in with motor mounts and stuff, and I figured, well, this will be easier. Well, worked on it in my spare time. My guys would build this thing just over winters and just when there was time. So it ended up taking like 3 years to build. But I ended up building it, put a 42R on it at first, a T4 based 42R that I had on a Mitsubishi Mirage back beforehand. And we got this thing together, and I really was worried about breaking the record. The record was 13.4 seconds when I started building the hearse, which that would have been easy, but mid-build, someone in Transylvania had built a hearse that went mid-11s, and I really thought I was going to have some trouble there. So, well, you just got to get it to the track and see what it does. So we get it to the track, and just off the foot brake, like launch at like 3,000 RPM, not even using a two-step. I just ease out of the hole and just kind of make sure the car goes down the track. Go to the timing booth, and car ran at 11.7 first pass. I was within 0.2 of a second on my first pass in this thing to break the record. So make one more pass, the first pass in the two-step, the car went 11.50, broke the world record, and I was the record holder for the world's fastest hearse. And now the car has been, since then, I easily got into the 10s on that setup, changed it up, put a Borg Warner S480 on it, ended up going 9.9 on a stock 6-liter. That's stock rods, pistons, crank, heads, the whole 9 yards. Ended up running it on a half mile. I lowered the boost a little bit, I think down to about 20 PSI. For half mile, the thing went 161 miles an hour. And you know, the people were looking at us like we were crazy in the LS world, because really back then nobody was running that kind of boost on an LS motor. And this is probably 2012, 2013. And I remember we were at the half mile, and the tuner from Speed Inc., which is a local LS shop, said, you know, look, wow, you know, the thing's pretty fast. Like, what's in it? And how much boost are you running? I'm like, oh, it's stock 6-liter. You know, we usually run 23 to 25 pounds of boost for drag racing. You know, that's where it goes about, 9.9. But we lowered it down because, stock motor, we were lowered down to 20. And he said, you guys are crazy. And, well, I'll take that as a compliment. Apparently, AMS knows how to build a V8 also. So from there, I knew I was pushing my luck. I really wanted a solid 9-second car, not something strung to the ragged edge. So ended up putting a forged motor in it, switched to twin Garrett turbos, and on the first outing with that, the car went 950, 147, and that was 2 years ago. I've still yet to take the car out and really string it out and see how fast it'll go. But my guess is, on full tilt, the car will probably click off a 9.2, and it's really not that bad for a street car. I mean, the car's got a casket in the back. It's still got all the rollers and all the interior in place. I mean, it's a legitimate car. I mean, it's a legitimate hearse. Going into this, I didn't want to build some gutted out tin can. To me, that is not a hearse. It needs to be a functioning vehicle. So that's what I've got. I built and drive the world's fastest hearse. So now when I take the car to car shows and to the track, I always get a crowd of people who say, I want you to take me on my last ride when I die. So I'm guessing in 20 to 30 years, I'm probably going to not only own the world's fastest hearse, but I'm also going to be the world's fastest undertaker. But I'm still waiting on a call from Iron Maiden. So if you know a guy, send him my way.
As a luxury and exotic brand dealer, you know the challenge of putting the right price tag on perfection. Ritz Garage places you directly in touch with our qualified network of new and used dealers with no auction fees. Ritz Garage, Premium cars, premium dealers, without premium fees.